The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of KSMQ Public Service Media Incorporated or its assigns.
Hi, I'm Dan Hoffman from KSMQ Farm Connections. Thanks for joining us. We'll be talking about stress and farming and what it takes to get food from the farm to the grocery store. Stay with us, watch your Farm Connections, and with me tonight is on my far right, Kevin Plant from MFN, and Holly Thompson from Little Valley Dairy, and Jerry Demmer from Minnesota Corn Promotion Council. So Jerry, can you tell me about your job at the council?
Dan, thanks. Yeah, I farm over at Clarks Grove, and this is my 7th year on the Minnesota Corn Research and Promotion Council as a director. It's been a very enjoyable, fun-filled ride with the Promotion Council, networking with people from the other corn-growing states in the Midwest.
Excellent. 7 years?
7 years. I'm in my 3rd term.
Thank you. So. Holly, tell us about Little Valley Farm.
Well, I'm Holly Thompson from Little Valley Dairy. We are located just south of Plainview. We milk about 200 cows with our children who are 12, 11, and 7. They are all very active in the farm as well.
Thank you. And Kevin, MFAN.
MFAN is a new effort by the Minnesota Department of Agriculture. It stands for the Minnesota Farmer Assistance Network. And it's a call-in center as well as a one-on-one resource to help farmers try to deal with financial difficulties that they're having, as well as resources for legal, stress management, local services, those kinds of things.
Thank you, Kevin. When our public, especially people in town or maybe people that aren't on the farm, think about stress, they maybe think about jobs lost, houses and mortgages that didn't go well, or other sicknesses or health issues. And maybe they think about the farm and they think about the dairy cows out on the green grass and nice lush pastures and peaceful tranquil streams, and they really wonder what you're talking about when you talk about stress on the farm and producing food. Jerry, what's stressful about agriculture and producing products for the grocery store?
Well, Dan, there's a number of different stresses on the farm, and I'll touch on a couple of them and let the rest of the people, Holly and Kevin, fill in after that. But the one is the marketing. Marketing of crops. Did I sell too early? Did I sell enough? But the bottom line for that is to know your bottom line in crop production, and then you can make a decision on marketing that crop. And then there's the weather-related issues, which you know, in the long run, I think as a person gets a little bit older and you have more patience, that a lot of these stresses, such as the weather, are self-inflicted because you can't do anything about the weather. You just deal with it, what you got. I mean, last fall was a prime example when everybody was dealing with the wet corn and the extra cost that we incurred to dry that corn, and it looked like that we were going to harvest till the middle of December, but luckily we got done as a lot of other people got it. Most people got done. There's some still standing, but they're getting at it now. So,
thank you. Holly, what happens on your farm when, as Jerry mentioned, the budget doesn't work exactly as planned?
Well, there's a lot of pencil pushing that goes on. Probably one of the first things we look at is where can we do a better job? Not necessarily where can we cut costs, but some things that, you know, you could maybe just tweak a few things, maybe make cows feel a little more comfortable so they're a little happier in their environment. We've pretty much put all that in place in our new facility. We have automated fans, automated sprinklers, even a rotating cow brush that turns on as they go to it. Pretty much the cat's meow, really, but you know, you look at all of these things. What can you do better? Can you do some more of the labor yourself? Can you cheapen up the ration for the cows? But then again, you have to also think, if I cheapen up the ration, feed the cows a little less protein, how is that going to affect my income? And if that goes down, substantially, is it going to be worth it?
How many hours would you estimate that you and your husband put into the dairy operation in 1 week?
Good question. My employees clock in on a badge system, and I have one for myself, but I've never used it because I've never cared to see how many hours. And maybe that's a good thing, because I think it would probably stress me out just looking at it. Most days my husband is up about 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and he usually doesn't retire until at least 8 o'clock at night. Myself, I don't get up until about 6, unless I am on the morning milking shift. But then I get the kids on the bus, I deal with that, and then I'm up a little later making sure that everything's taken care of, and any cows who are calving have had assistance.
It sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah, sometimes you feel like you have opposite schedules as your spouse, but in the end it's all worth it.
Good. Recently I was working with a farm where they estimated their hours at 7,000 plus hours for just 2 people, and when they calculated out their return per hour, it was less than $2. Does that cause stress?
Oh, absolutely. But you just tell yourself that tomorrow's another day, and if I want this here for the next generation, I have to do this.
Thanks, Holly. Kevin, do you get any calls from farmers or farm families about stress, and what do you recommend?
Yeah, it's pretty much a constant thing. Since starting up in November, we've had nearly 100 calls to the toll-free number that individuals have identified issues that they're trying to work through or trying to questions about things. And one of the common questions that I'll always pose to them is how they're doing emotionally about the present situation. Many times it's the spouse that's calling, and so it's the wife that is having the real serious difficulty, or at least allowing to address it and to actually ask the questions about where do we go for some help, because we don't know where we can go and who we can talk to about those kinds of things. Other situations, it's communications maybe breakdown in the family unit, or it is issues that they're having with their lender. They just got denied by their lender to get the operating loan, and their rent is due, and the combine payment is due, or possibly overdue, and now they've gotten to a point where they don't know where to turn and things. So you get a whole combination, like you mentioned here, about all kinds of different issues that can bring those things along, and it's a matter of trying to address them first of all, which is great, because I think we're seeing more of that in rural America now than maybe we had in the past. That people recognize things like depression and other emotional issues that can deter from your ability to think clearly and to act clearly on issues and such here. And then it's trying to find those resources to try to help you work through those types of things. So it's kind of the whole gamut of maybe a key issue that is coming about. But there's definitely stress out there, and it's a matter of trying to manage it and try to work with it.
What's the most common call that you get at MFAN?
Usually it's on financial. Usually it's a situation where, and unfortunately a lot of times it's been the livestock. Dairy's been probably one of our common areas that we've been seeing most of our calls come from. The commodity prices have been too low. Their prices, their inputs such as feed and everything have been too high. They're falling behind on things, and they need to have somebody to be able to look at the numbers and help them, give some advice, some guidance, some direction on where to go with that. And along with that, of course, we recognize the level of stress that occurs to individuals. We start seeing some of the behavioral health issues, such as depression, such as falling to other types of chemical use dependency, or whatever the case may be, and how they're dealing with it, instead of trying to address the emotion itself.
Thanks, Kevin. Jerry, your workloads may be a little more seasonal. And what's the most significant stress you've had in your farming career?
Well, the stress level, of course, when you're busy, for Holly in the dairy industry, they're busy all the time, so they aren't thinking about the stressful things. Where a crop farmer is not that busy in the off season, so then I think that brings on more stress. But when you're busy, you're not thinking about things. Does that make sense?
It does
Dan?
make sense, but as I think about the crop farmers I know, they've gotten busier and busier even in that winter time. They're retraining, they're retooling, they're working in the shop, but maybe you're getting back to normal, say 40, 50 hours a week instead of the mega hours. Is that a safe comment to say?
Well, don't get me wrong. It's not that the crop farmer is, not busy. During the winter months, he is figuring out, getting the financials in order, hauling grain or in marketing and buying your inputs for the next year. So, but I do want to touch on, Kevin mentioned about the livestock industry, and we're very the Minnesota corn growers are very sympathetic to the livestock industry. The hog industry is taking it. They've lost a lot of money, a lot of liquid cash, and the dairy industry. So the consumer needs to understand that that without the product coming in that's a pretty reasonable price that they're buying at the grocery store. They might not think so, but it is. And the dairy industry and the pork industry is not making much money, if any at all.
Certainly, both dairy and hogs have had issues this past few years, actually. Pork production is well below cost of production. It does cause family stress as their net worth erodes and possibly even their ability to make a living and feed their own family. Compound that with sometimes some high expensive health insurances. Do any of you have any experiences with health insurance or medical concerns that you wish to share?
My husband had a farm accident about 1.5 years ago and lost some fingers and had a lot of reconstruction work done on his hand. We pay over $1,200 a month just in health insurance, and that's at a low level of coverage. There's a lot of stress that goes with that. Well, you have insurance, but that's for major things. But when it comes to major things, you don't realize how much that you end up paying out of pocket until it does happen.
So not only do you have the injury, you have the financial part of it too. Mm-hmm. So your health insurance is well over $14,000 a year, and goes down every year or goes up every year?
It goes up every year, unfortunately.
Imagine that.
Yep.
And the deductible is probably fairly high.
Yeah, yep. And prescriptions, they don't cover him anymore on prescriptions because he is an asthmatic. Our son is also was an asthmatic. He's pretty much outgrown it now, but you worry about, well, if I shop around and I try to go with somebody else, is that going to hurt me? So far, we've just stayed where we are at.
Well, I heard you mention earlier that you took very good care of the dairy animals. There was a brush for the hair coat and to make them feel good, and creature comfort seemed to be a culture on your farm. And you put nice housing out there so they stay warm in the winter. What do you do for the family? How do you take care of yourself?
Good question. We used to have a seasonal campsite. We have given that and the camper up. We let that go a couple years ago after we realized that the new barn and more cows were a little more time consuming than what it had been. Now we like to go four-wheeling. The kids are all young enough that they'll still do what you want, but that's something they really enjoy. And we have a side-by-side ATV where they can all ride on with us. Well, not all, but between the four-wheeler and the side-by-side. And we've got room for all 5 of us to go. So it's kind of nice. We actually just made a trail in one of our woods close to home yesterday where we could ride, and we moved our picnic table up there. So maybe we could even take one evening where we could camp this summer.
Sounds like a help in reducing stress.
You have to try something.
Jerry, what do you do to reduce
Well,
stress?
I'm with Holly. Any time you can enjoy your family, and that'll reduce the stress. Whether it's a weekend vacation going four-wheeling, fishing, whatever it may be. I like, believe it or not, taking care of my granddaughters. That in itself is a little stressful, but yet it keeps me busy and it's fun. So it's another joy in a person's life.
Good point. Family is a blessing.
Absolutely.
When your husband had the injury, that sounds like it could have been life-changing both for you as a couple, your family, and maybe beyond into the farm operation. How did your family handle that? And did anybody come forward to help you? Did you reach out?
Well, at the time, we didn't really know where to go, what to do, and things just kind of fell into place and happened. I like to say it's like the sun, the moon, and the stars all aligned in one. Our nephew, who has been part of the farm operation for several years, had been off to college, and he had a mandatory 2-week break. He was home, and he knows the farm operation inside and out. He pretty much grew up there. He pretty well took over both my and my husband's positions. I spent 3 days at the hospital with him, and while I was gone, friends and family, just pitched in and helped wherever they could. The hay was all chopped. There was some hay that got too dry. They baled that, got it off the field, wrapped it. Food was brought in, meals were made. All 3 kids were taken care of. A couple friends of mine that work for our dairy equipment dealership, I have a lot of automation. I have an automatic calf feeder, and then I also have daily milk weights and activity for my cows. They came in, checked that stuff over, made sure everything was taken care of. I mean, people were very, very good to us. And I don't know that anyone, could ever repay somebody for as much as they did for us. But, things just fell into place, and we made it through. But it's stressful just learning to cope again. With the loss of fingers on a dominant hand, and then, letting him get back to his old self. That's probably the hardest, I think.
Well, thanks for sharing. Little Valley Dairy is near Plainview, correct?
Yes.
And sounds like you have some very special neighbors that helped out. But I also know from dealing with farm families that we've got those kinds of people all through our farm communities. So
Absolutely.
I'm thinking them seeing you successful and a happy family unit back together and still farming is probably a big thank you in itself. So.
Well, if there ever comes a day where they need it, we'll be there. Actually, our chopper was a custom chopping business, and we owned it solely. And after the accident, we went into partnership on a new chopper with another farmer, and he had an accident just a year ago and had his foot injured. And we stepped in and brought their cows to our farm for a few months and helped them out. But I don't regret helping them a bit, even though it did put a little stress on our cows and our lives, because they were now at our farm and our responsibility. But it's those things you like to give back to others who help you.
It sounds like agriculture is a very dangerous occupation. Jerry, have you seen similar types of accidents or issues in your community?
No, I haven't, but I've been involved with helping neighbors, and I think that's the backbone of rural America, was what Holly's saying, that neighbors will, they'll stop doing what they're doing on their own farm to come and help their neighbor. Bring the food over and get stuff done, and that's great. It's friends and family, and that's what really lightens the stress load. And I just want to say one point I want to make, and that's whether it's dairy or hogs or crop farming, is that, and we're in the business that we have a fluctuating market, but yet when everything is going good and you're making money, it's not as stressful rather than trying to make ends meet and have to figure out the borrowing the money and calling Kevin up and asking, trying to get financing, having him help you get financing or whatever it may be, then that's where you get some stressful times.
So in Clarks Grove, you have neighbors like in Plainview.
Yeah. Yes.
What happens when the neighbors don't know that there's an issue? Either the farm family's not telling or it's not obvious. Any advice for those families? How do we help people that we don't even know they need help?
You mean in an accident or something, Dan, or explain a little bit?
The stress has been so bad. For example, anhydrous goes from $400 a ton to $1,400. Corn moves from 5 or 7 down to 3 or even less. We were at 278 last fall. That volatility is stressful, and maybe somebody doesn't reach out to you or to Holly and say, wow, we've got an issue here. Any advice? How do they handle that? Who do they turn to?
I'll speak on it first. I think they talk to their closest farmer friend. Maybe their spouse, if their spouse is involved in the farming at all, and that can lend a helping hand to talk things through. But I think the farmer friend is a great friend indeed.
Good, thank you. Holly?
I actually just had the opportunity a couple weeks ago to listen to a speaker at the National Dairy Herd Information Association annual meetings, and he spoke on stress as well. And his idea was to find someone who is a real good friend, and not by good friend by thinking you and I can do anything together. You know, we can go to the bar and have a drink or whatever, but someone who has a lot in common with you and can relate to you. And in a lot of cases, exactly as you said, you know, a farmer friend.
Thanks. Good advice. Some that come to mind for me might be extension agents passed in addition to the neighbor or friend. Sometimes you need a third-party objective person or somebody to help with the finances or cash flows. MnSCU has a program, Minnesota Farm Business Management Program. There's instructors, and mgt.org, there's a website. And Kevin, your program is fairly new and it sounds like you're being well used. Do you have a phone number or website you can share with the audience?
Yeah, our toll-free number is 1-877-898-6326, or MFAN, as that spells out. Our website, you can dial, or you can punch in www.mda.state.mn/MFAN, or just do a search for Minnesota Department of Agriculture or Minnesota Farmer Assistance Network to be able to connect with that. And part of that network, as you mentioned here, you know, has been established, has been to identify the need for that resource or that connection with other people. And so one of the things we've done with this network is connected with a group called Crisis Connection out of the Twin Cities. They're a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week, 365-day-a-year call-in center. And they have a coalition with the Sowing Seeds of Hope group. That's a multi-state unit. People that are trained therapists that work with agriculture, understand some of the issues that we deal with, whether it's financial or whether it's family or whether it's other types of things, and individuals to be able to talk with and such. You had mentioned also about the extension. The Family Development Group has an extensive listing of resources and tools that an individual can go online and find to help them try to address those kinds of stress, behavioral health, or another good term came across the other day here was emotional intelligence, the ability to actually recognize the stress and be able to manage it. I think we're doing so much of a better job today of at least recognizing it and recognizing the behavioral health issues instead of thinking of them as more of a person as a character issue, that they can't handle it, they can't deal with it, and those kinds of things. Now to see that the stress of a situation can create those kinds of problems where we get physical ailments that come from it, but also some of our behavioral activity that maybe is even causing worse problems, such as dependence on alcohol or smoking or whatever the case is, or inability to communicate with a spouse or other individuals as well too and stuff. So we seem to be always gaining on that, but I also think we kind of need, many of our farmers need to look at trying to accept that and recognize that, you know, it's a health issue. It's not a character issue.
Good point, Kevin. And can you share the phone number again, please?
That's 1-877-898-6326.
Thank you. MinFan.
MinFan.
Excellent. Holly, any closing comments? We've got about a minute left.
Yes, one thing that I feel leads a lot of stress in my life in the spring, in the fall, sometimes throughout the summer, when we are going up and down the road with our farm equipment, please just give us our space. If you see a field drive coming up or a farm site coming up, expect that we are probably going to turn and don't try to pass us.
Good point. The outcome would not be good.
No, we've had a few close calls, so.
Holly Thompson from Little Valley Dairy from Plainview, thank you for joining us. Jerry Demmer, Minnesota Corn Producers Promotion and Research Council.
Research and Promotion Council, yes.
Thank you. That's a tongue twister for
Yeah,
me. But
yes,
thank you, and
yes.
thank you for the good work you do, and thank you for producing the milk. I love ice creams, as does my daughter and the rest of my family. Kevin, I think you're going to be busy for a while. I'm glad you have this new program, and thank you for joining us, all three of you.
Thanks, Dan.
You bet.
Thank you.
Appreciate it very much. And thank you for joining us tonight. For more information, log on to ksmq.org and click on Farm Connections. There you'll find past episodes, and you can participate with blogs and also submit your ideas. Tune in next time when we're discussing the impacts of agriculture on all of us. For everyone at Farm Connections, I'm Dan Hoffman. Thanks for joining us, and see you next week. Good night.
When I was 5, I walked the fence.